Okay, so I just want to talk with you a little bit about the flours that we're going to use in our bread. Within gluten-free baking, there are so many different grains that you can use, and I've worked with a lot of them, but I just want to show the ones that I prefer for this. I know that depending on where you're from, some of the grains are more expensive, whereas they might be the cheaper ones for me. So the grains that I have chosen are the ones that work for my region, and you may find that you need to play with that a little bit. But I would suggest that if you're able to, start with these grains. If you're not able to access one of them, let me know and we can talk about that. But I am going to look at my notes just a little to make sure that I don't forget what I want to talk about. With our starter, when you watch the starter videos, you'll see that we use buckwheat and brown rice. Those are my starter flours that I use all the time. And in my actual baking, I rarely use brown rice. I prefer sweet white rice. In my notes, I give more of a description of each flour and kind of break it down. And I'm not going to do that on here because that would get a little bit long. But this is my choice for things like scones or pancakes. I use that in there. And then tapioca starch. It's messy, but it's perfect for what we want as a starch. So I always use tapioca starch. And there's not too much in here, but this is millet. Millet is a bit of a drying flour, so I tend to keep my amounts of it less, but I do like the flavor and what it adds to the crumb. And then sorghum. I would say sorghum is the one that most closely mimics the texture and the mild flavor of what you might be used to with a wheat flour, if that is what you have used in the past. And I use it quite a bit. So then that's what I use for flours. And then of course we have our psyllium husk, which is a super important part of our bread. And we don't use a large quantity of it, but it is important. And then if you're vegan or aren't able to use eggs, it's not a flour, but the other seed that we use is flax, and I prefer golden flax. Again, not everybody has access, so you might use a slightly different kind of flax, but I use golden flax. So I think you can look at the notes and find out more information about the why of each flour, and you can play with it once you're more confident. You can add in different flours. Some people love teff, and I think that makes a great addition to bread where I am. Teff is less accessible and is more expensive, so I use buckwheat. But I've had friends who are from other places say that they find buckwheat to be very expensive, so they use teff. Those are things that you can play with and figure out once you're confident with your breads. But to start, I will have a list in the notes that you can look through and for the recipes, and that's what I recommend using.